Welcome to the latest in our series of videos where I've asked my contributors to go over Ireland's options for each of the 15 starting jerseys. If you look back in the feed, you'll see we've already covered quite a few. And today the lads are going to look at two key positions in the pack, starting with Mark Jackson, who's going to focus on number 6.
Yeah, I think on pure numbers, I think number 6 is our deepest position because you go from the guys that have played there. You got Peter O'Mahony, who's probably the incumbent. You got Jack Conan, who can play 6. You've got Tyke Byrne, who can play 6. You've got Ian Henderson, who can play 6. And you've got Caelan Doris, who has played 6. I think all these guys have multiple caps in that position for Ireland, either starting or coming off the bench. And with the depth that we've got there, you've got different options where you can almost go horses for courses. If you want an extra line-out option, do you pick Henderson in the second row and stick Byrne at 6? Or, Mahoney's a great line-out operator. Conan and Doris, if you're going for more of a carry-oriented game. And if you're going for a little bit more size, say, against South Africa, you're probably looking at maybe somebody like Joe McCarthy could come into the reckoning on the bench as well, and then you could shift Byrne to 6. The starting pack is probably looking at O'Mahony, Doris, and Van der Fleer at the moment, with Byrne and Ryan in the second row. And depending on who you pick on the bench, you can then experiment with different guys at 6. Blindside is not just that enforcer these days. He's got to be an extra line-out option, which is almost always good for O'Mahony to be involved in the 23. But I'd love to see a team with, especially against somebody like Scotland, where we need to take them on up front. Scotland's strength is in the backs. They've got a relatively light pack, and I'd like to see us go out with Joe McCarthy and Ryan in the second row and Byrne at 6. To be honest with you, I'd like to see us go at them up front, really take it to them in the tight and see how they can react to it, because it doesn't matter how good your backline is if you can't win any ball. It doesn't have any effect. And I think 6 is a position where we might see a few guys. We might see in the first 3 games, especially, you might see 3 different people take that jersey.
Yeah, I mean, versatility is the key to this squad. That's for sure. And 6 is, like you say, is the one where you've got people who naturally play there, but also others that can cover both that and lock as well. So loads of different options. I think you're absolutely right about those first 3 games and different looks. And I think teams preparing to play us will be, until the actual team is named around the Thursday or Friday, they won't really know how to be lining up, because it's not just the personnel. It's like having them there, different players there affects the way the whole team's going to play and the balance of the back row.
Oh, massively. As I said, if you're picking a bigger 6, do you still stick with your original plan as the opposition, or do you adjust accordingly for it? So it's a great situation to be in, especially if you're Paul O'Connell and Simon Easterby, who are helping out with the forwards. What they will always throw their 2 cents in regarding that horses for courses thing. And as we all know, every second row thinks he's a 6 anyway. So I'm sure James Ryan would love to have a gallop in the 6 jersey, but there's 2 guys there that are pure second rows, and they're both Leinster men in Ryan and McCarthy. I say whatever delusions of grandeur they have about playing in the back row, like, lads, we need a couple of lumps in the engine room, because obviously Jean Klein is the best tight head lock in Ireland, and he doesn't play for us anymore. So we need their heft in there, and yeah, I'd love to see an occasion where our back row, and obviously the one guy who I didn't mention, who had probably my player of the match anyway while he was on, is Ryan Baird as well. I haven't mentioned him. He can do a job in the second row, as he did in the Grand Slam game against England, but I still think 6 is his best position. So I know we were all purring about this weekend's game, seeing Baird, Doris, and Van der Fleer playing in the back row. Wasn't their greatest game either individually or collectively, but they all had positive contributions, which was good to see. But yeah, I think 6 is probably, along with tight head, the position that Conor's going to talk about now, are 2 positions where we've got serious world class depth as well, not just depth, world class depth.
Absolutely. And as Mark said, we next up we have Conor, who's going to harp on jersey number 3.
Yeah, and you know what? Before this weekend, I was looking, and uh, even even with things that happened this weekend, I have never seen the number 3 jersey looking as healthy as it does right now. You know, you think back to Tom Court against England and the disaster that he had in that particular game, and players getting shoved back because we didn't have our first choice tight head. And now, if and touch wood and everything else, if something were to happen to our first choice tight head, we've got 2 fellas just waiting to come in to do a really, really decent job. Like Mark mentioned earlier, Finlay Bealham has just had the season of his life this year. He has played better than I think maybe a lot of us expected. I think maybe a lot of people thought, okay, we've got one tight head who's here, and we've got another one who's kind of here, and we don't. We've got one who's here, and maybe one who's here, and a third one then who's just a little bit below that in Tom O'Toole. Um, Before this weekend, I would have been looking saying, at worst, you could always put Cian Healy over there and he'll do a job. Or, you could put Andrew Porter there and he'd do a job, which I don't think will happen now based on Healy's injury, that Porter will be asked at any stage to be on the loose head side. Um, but it's amazing the quality that we've had coming through over the last few years. And it's a credit to the coaching systems they have in their own provinces as well, that these players are making those big steps up, that they're improving at that level. It's the healthiest we've been in my lifetime at 3. It's one position that I don't think, you look at the entire squad, and where previous World Cups you might have worried, I'm not concerned in the same way I would have been at all. Yeah, you're worried when they go up against the bomb squad whenever they come in, but only because you know there's a lot more pressure and a lot more force when those players come on than maybe we might get in a couple of other teams. But I think just for sheer ability, we've got 3 players now chosen for the squad who are without doubt 3 first choice tight heads in the country, and there's no argument about it at all. Um, they've all earned their place there. I'm looking forward to seeing what all 3 of them can do. We saw a good example at the weekend of Bealham. That the first few scrums weren't brilliant, but for the most part, he locked out our scrum and he gave us what we needed on his side. Um, you know, you get moments where players slip in wet weather, and again, that's technique he can work on or whatever else, or longer studs that he can put on the boots. But I think the work they do, and it's not just the scrum either. It's the other work they do around the park. You look back to the Six Nations and inside offloads tight head to your fullback. It's unheard of in the past. But it's quality hands. They've all got this ability to put themselves about. And again, like Mark was saying with 6, certain players do certain things a little bit better. But I think Tom O'Toole is better at getting himself around the park and doing that kind of work, where Bealham will be better at just keeping focused on keeping where he's meant to be and finding the right ruck to be supporting or to be hitting, or the right line to be taking. So it'll be a case of what's needed for what game, when selections are being made. But I'm not concerned at that role at all, and it's a really happy place to be that we have that depth. That, in previous years where you might have only taken 5 props to the World Cup, and you'd have been worried and you'd have been hoping that somebody could play both sides. We're taking 6 props to the World Cup this year, and 3 loose and 3 tight, and I think we're in good stead.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a feature of this run that that Farrell's Ireland team have been on has been the emergence of players like Bielam and O'Toole and their ability. Because I mean, I think going back to the start of the run, we'd be, and if we were looking ahead to the World Cup from then, if we did a video on the three position, we'd be thinking, well, you know, one of the things we're going to have to count on and hope for the World Cup is, you know, Bielam, O'Toole, they might be good options, but we're going to need maybe 65, 70 minutes at a tight furlong for most of our big matches if we're going to progress in the tournament. But now with the fact that they've been able to come on and put not only come on and put in shifts towards the end, but they've also had good starts for Ireland themselves when called upon. We know they can do a job, which means we can maybe even rest furlong a bit more and just give them maybe 55 minute shifts as well. So it's been key, especially in such a key position for Ireland, not just with the fact that we have furlong, but it's, you know, it's a key position for any team in a major tournament. Yeah, that's definitely that's good to see. Right, lads, that's perfect. Many thanks as ever for that. We still have a few more numbers to cover, and we'll be getting on with them over the coming weeks before the World Cup kicks off. As always, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, slán.